Gina,
Yes.
you have completed your career change.
I did.
Yes.
Just a few months ago, it came to an end.
Very exciting.
Yes, very.
Would you like to tell us where you were and what you shifted to?
I was prima ballerina of the Royal Swedish Ballet Company, and I've gone into running my own company, which is a ballet school, and developing and producing new children's ballets.
Great.
So, yeah. Not too much of a big difference, but it is. Like, I'm not performing, I'm not the one standing on stage, so it's a lot more involved, especially on the business side. So, yeah.
We'll get back to that.
Yes.
And Jesse, you haven't changed your career yet.
No, still dancing.
Still dancing. And where are you dancing, and will you start doing your career change?
Yeah, so currently I'm dancing at Göteborgs Dance Company.
Yep.
I've been there for 5 seasons. This is my last season with the company. And then next year I will be connected with Dance Alliansen for 1 year and possibly a little bit longer. So I won't initiate using SOK until, at least 2023 or 24.
A couple of more years.
A couple of more years. And so there's a stipulation that you have to take it before you turn 43. And my thought was to stay with the opera up until right before I took SOK, but then actually reflecting a bit more on the transition phase, I'm thinking that, it takes time to connect to yourself and brainstorm and theorize a little bit about how you want to approach your transition. So that's why I'm going to shift a bit and use my time a little bit differently in the preparation stage before I take SOK. Yeah.
Great. And this conversation will focus on what we call the orientation phase or transition, and then we go into transition phase. But the SOK describes this orientation phase as the time before you create your action plan, and emphasize the fact that it is individually shaped. So for each of you who shifts career, the orientation phase looks a bit different. Would you like to give us input on your orientation phase? How long was it, and what did you do?
I started before meeting with SOK. I had ideas of teaching children on my days off. So I suppose before I met SOK, I was always, for 2 years, I was starting to feel things and if I enjoyed it as much as what I was doing. So when I met SOK, it was more of confirming and my ideas and helping me build on top of that. So I suppose that orientation phase started a little bit before I met SOK. And then SOK really guided me into making it happen, I suppose. And if I knew if it would succeed, it was a confidence, I think, boost from SOK to know that I could do this, I suppose, from leaving that identity of being something else. Yeah.
And what was the tools used? So was it talks or tests? Or
I met with Linda at SOK. She was fantastic. We would hour meetings, and it was almost like I could vent all these ideas, and it was received with such a positive way that this is great, you can do this. And then I also met with the business advisor, because that is obviously the side, being a ballerina, that you have no idea about. So he opened my eyes to a lot of questions and queries of if I wanted to proceed with this, what I would need to do. Hence, he gave me the idea to do a business course and to understand that side of things. So a lot of talking, and planning, and the business plan, which I will, definitely say everyone should do once they have that idea. That was more my phase with SOK.
But as I understand it, you kind of had a mission. You were pretty sure where you were going to land before you started. Can you tell us a bit more?
I think the mission for me has always been about contributing more to the classical culture in Sweden. So that for me was the mission. It wasn't necessarily, I want to have a school, I want to have a business. It was really about the art which I was dancing in for so long here, 17, 18 years. And the passion of continuing that even in another way, rechanneling it, not just being on stage, but giving back and offering it, making it more accessible to people, whether they're Swedish or international. So that was the big mission why it started. And it's growing from there. It's become many more missions.
You're expanding now.
Yeah.
We'll get back. We'll get back to your mission a bit later. But Jessie, can you talk a bit about where you are mentally when it comes to career shifting now? What's your take on the question right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that in dance, it's never a surprise that you will have to embark on a career transition at some point. So I think that you always have, or I always had, kind of percolating seeds, even from when I was in my 20s, because I didn't know how much longer I wanted to dance and how the career was going to shape up and how long I would find it interesting, and or if something shifts or there's an injury or for some reason you have to leave. So you're always kind of thinking about not a plan B, just a plan other. And so where I'm at now, I mean, I think all these things were kind of percolating. And then I think it was actually during COVID, when COVID came, everything shut down. And so I had a lot of time to think, which was weirdly a blessing. And so I used that time quite a bit to just sort of sift through ideas, because I think for me, it was never certain that I was going to be a dancer. And so my interests were always with dance, but in other things. I even went to university before I tried to become a professional dancer. I was taking classes in philosophy and humanities and things like that. It was really a fully different direction, not dancing at all. And then I was like, oh, well, I should give dance a shot, and went back, and that was 21 years ago. So I think for me, where am I in the phase right now? I think because I'm not yet taking SOK, I'm still looking at what options are available to me and what I think I would find fulfilling. I very much agree, kind of in a similar but different way, that dance is such a self-focused endeavor that I feel good on that. I would like to change the flow of energy. And so, I mean, whether it is to dance students or just out into the world, I feel that a lot of dancers want to stop looking in the mirror and focus and give something back. Not that we don't give when we're on stage and the public receives something from it, but I think that, I would like to not work on my personal perfection or form, but really try to give to others. So how to do that, and in what capacity. And I don't know if this is the right place in the conversation to talk about it, but one thing I found very useful during this kind of COVID brainstorming time, I recommend using a whiteboard, very handy. But I actually, because I find so many different things interesting, I sort of started thinking about how I would want my life to be, and sort of reverse engineered it from that to see what would fit that, instead of thinking, well, I want to be this thing, and then see what that would be, but more, okay, in 5 or 10 years, how would I like my life to be financially, but also lifestyle-wise? Do I want to sit behind a desk and type, or do I want to interact with people one-on-one? Do I want to be in a project leading type of situation? Do I want to work in a different sector fully, where it's overseeing something and you don't really interact with the people you are affecting? What do I want to wear to work? Do I want to sit in meetings? Do I, all of these things, and sort of reversed engineered it from there, which I found helpful, because then it sort of pushed some other things that maybe I find interesting. You can just go to the library and read a book on it. You don't need to make it your life's work. And what fits into how I would like my life to be, fulfillment-wise, but also really logistic, daily structure-wise. How do you want the time in your day to be spent?
I think that's the wonderful thing, being in this position when you're facing retirement, or because suddenly you're making those choices for yourself, and especially being within a big company, or your choices are made for you to a point, right? And so finally you come to this point of, like you say, you get to this point of, well, what do I want from my life now? And it's, once you come over that fear, I suppose, which we all have of change, it's amazing the energy it gives you. You end up coming up with all these ideas, and it never stops. So once you do transition and you found your place, what's amazing is you can then do other things too. It's not just you have to be. There's so much more, because you have that freedom, I suppose.
Have you reflected, and are you reflecting about what you're bringing from the dance, your dancing careers into next careers? Obviously, you're still in the dancing world in some way, but you use different qualities?
I think what's the qualities are the same, the self-motivation and perseverance, and all those qualities you have as a dancer are complete life tools that you use for your future, whether you stay in the dance world or not. And that's one thing which I think has been amazing when you look back on your career and how disciplined you are, and it's all comes into play now, being your self-made boss, or you have it naturally. So I think that's the tools that I've kept, the qualities that I really see now that maybe you don't really notice while you're dancing. You appreciate them more, thankful for them.
I would say that when you're dancing, you're surrounded with people who are similar to you. So if you don't sense that, maybe you have extremely high work ethic because everyone around you has the same.
Exactly.
So you don't really notice that. But I think that you hear so many dancers and people from other professions as well saying, well, I don't know what I have that would be translatable to something else. And it's really, you have to get the evidence to have the confidence, before you can believe it.
Exactly.
Someone can say, oh no, you really have a lot of skills and qualities. It's like, great, but I think that, just the way that functioning in a group, the determination, the self-perseverance, the work ethic, but also being able to feel the energy in a room and being able to lead, but also being able to listen and being able to non-verbally communicate. And there's just so many things that I think even people in very distant types of careers, in the financial sector or in business, being able to be responsive to energy in a room and how to interact with people, how to interact with the client, what information you can pull in, because all the time we have a choreographer in there and we are assimilating all of this kind of unspoken information.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that it's kind of there's many more things in yourselves than you realize. And so I think you have to trust that. But I think you also then have to get to a point where you get the evidence to believe in it.
Do you find it mentally challenging? Is it overwhelming to have all these options and direction possibilities?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Short answer.
very much so. I mean, I don't want it to sound intimidating. Everyone will have their own path. Some people might just fall right into something, or not even fall, but just that's where I want to go. I think it could be very specific to my personality, but I feel that really not many things are off the table, I mean, of course, time is a factor, so you can't embark on something where you need, 10 years of training. I probably am not going to become a surgeon. But yeah, I do find it overwhelming, especially because, I mean, like I said, I went to university first, then I went back to dance, and this dance career just sort of happened. And so I think, how do I want to say it? To make an informed decision in some way, it's where it relates to in your age. It happens around 40, so then you're kind of halfway through your working life. And so you're like, well, there's a lot of weight put on the decision. How do I want to spend the next 20 or 25 years? And then you start to do the math, and you're like, okay, well, I started dancing 20 years ago. From this point, 20 more years, I'll be 60, and then you can have your midlife crisis, alone in your bedroom. But I think there can be a lot of weight on it. I think it's helpful to take it seriously, of course, but to also, I think it's really helpful to hear people who've gone through it, because it feels like, for most people I've heard, that it just is an opening. and it really is like, oh, it's so much more and so much lighter. So I think that there really is kind of, I can only speak for myself, but there is a bit of a narrowing, and as you're coming up to the transition or leaving dance, dealing with everything that entails, which maybe we'll get to later in the conversation. But I think you just have to have faith that it will open. Things will come to you. Doors will open. Your life can only contain so much, and if you're dancing 40 hours a week and then recuperating in the off hours, not to mention life and family and all of those things, it doesn't leave a lot of space to fully chart a perfect path of all the steps. You really just have to have faith, go, and then the stones will present themselves.
Did you feel that SOK was kind of the mother or the father to guide you through the transition, or through the?
I mean, SOK definitely played a big part in the transition. I mean, first of all, financially, of course. At the end of the day, we have to live, we have to eat, and you've had also, being part of a big company, you've had that stability month after month that to a point you don't really appreciate until you're at the end, until you realize that your earnings, that's you're going to have to be on top of that. So on that side, it really helped. And luckily for me, I knew what I wanted to do by that point. So I could really invest financially into the company and still be okay to live. But on a mental sense, they helped me realize this shift of identity. Like I said, it was they gave me the confidence to do it, I suppose. Because you have like you say, you have a lot of questions and queries, and it was just having someone to vent, like a therapist, like to listen to you and come with feedback. It's vital for those first three years, or for those 3 years, because it goes very fast. Now that I look back, and I'm now just left it, in the beginning, for me, my worry was, am I going to be successful enough to be able to live off my company? Is it going to be able to fund me and my children, my family? And that's a big worry, a big stress, and luckily those 3 years, having it planned out with SOK, with Linda, where I want to be in 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, it went very smoothly, and I was reaching the goals every year. And so now I can honestly say it's fine. But it's a big stress on that side, and yeah.
This is something actually I want to ask a question, because I think in my perception of SOK is that I will interact with them a lot until I actually engage the process, and then I will stop. But it sounds like you were engaged with them
when
fully.
I was in the process.
Which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, it was really helpful. And I think it helped that I'd already started thinking before the retirement for me came quite fast because I'd already started feeling things before I even thought I was going to retire.
What do you mean by feeling things?
Like I knew, okay, I mean, the whole business started with mummy friends asking me to teach their children, and they've been asking for years. I was like, no, I want my day off a week, to the point of, okay, I'll give 1 class, I'll give 2 class, I'll see if I like it, with no pressures of I'm going to do this. It was purely just feeling it and seeing, because obviously I need to like it. And teaching had always been in me from a young age because my sister had done it, but still I was always the dancer, you know? So I think for me, when that started, and that was the 2 years before meeting Cirque, so it was 2 years I was feeling things, and it grew from there, and it just fit. And to the point, then I knew it got to the point of, okay, I'm ready, like saying, giving things back. It was more rewarding for me to be able to give back than me receiving the applause at the end of the show. Or, you know, you grow up, you change, you know, things change. And yeah, so I was lucky. I was lucky to have had that before.
Can I ask one question? Did you entertain other ideas of other directions?
I always into psychology. Okay. So now I'm going. I want. You're
doing another career shift.
I'm wanting to do an add-on. So this is what I feel, that we can constantly add on to what and that's the freedom that we talk about. You know. So now I want to do a bachelor's in psychology for ballet teachers to help change that side of things and contribute to a healthier mindset in how we treat dancers, especially classical ones. Yeah. So this is another add-on. So yeah, I had that thought to do that first, but then more choices, you get even more ideas. I think the more you open to things and not put those, I have to be this, I have to be that, more ideas come to you, and then those opportunities just happen. That this course has now been derived, which is amazing, you know, for psychology. And yeah, everything happens for a reason.
Did you talk a lot with your colleagues about where to go in 3 years or so? Beforehand, before you have decided to retire?
I think there was a few of us at this certain age, you know. So, I mean, a lot of people knew I was teaching on my day off, and they would ask me questions, how's it going? Or they'd see I'm absolutely exhausted. There were conversations, but I wish there were more conversations. Yeah.
How are that in your daily life with your colleagues? Do you speak about retirement and career change?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's not a taboo subject. I mean, I would say maybe there are some individuals who really don't want to speak about it, and that is fine. But I think that it's not spoken about much because there is this thought that it's kind of a very individual thing. And then, you know, you're leaving the building and you say, how's it going? And then you end up in this thing and you start talking about, oh, well, you know, I'm thinking about this and thinking about this. And so I think that there's really a need and a desire to connect with people who are in a similar situation. I think it's a very human thing to connect to people who are going through the same. And I think that's super valuable. And I think there could be more and should be more, or it's more availability for people to access that, to access a group. I've even thought about just putting together a small group at the opera in the next couple of months, because there's a handful of us who are in the same position. And, you know, you talk in the gym or you talk here, and it's like, well, we should just get together and just share thoughts. And I think there's an apprehension to say exactly what you are thinking, because maybe you want to keep it private, or also you might change your mind 100 times. And so if you say, oh, I'm going to become a veterinarian, someone's like, oh, Jesse's becoming a veterinarian. You don't want to lock yourself to a thing. But I think that to share ideas about, oh, did you know about this program? Have you heard of this? This I found really helpful. Just sharing information, I think is super useful. And how we understand it, and especially if you're foreigners, even if you've been here for a long time, there might be some things that are not obvious to you about how institutions function, and SOK is very helpful with this. But I think to have connection with your colleagues, it could happen between companies, but I think there's something about you already have an established familiarity with your colleagues, and so I think, I encourage people to do that because it removes a bit of the isolation, which can be really
daunting.
Yeah, really daunting.
Yeah.
And there's no fear of not getting that solo part or something because you're shifting, that you kind of feel that your energy is shifting, or...
I mean, I don't think that would happen from talking to your colleagues, and it's different in every company. I mean, I can say, I don't feel that at all in my company. I think it really is, I feel that for the most part, everyone has equal opportunity. I mean, a choreographer will come in, or we'll have a casting, and if they like you, and they'll use you. I mean, there's people who are 42 who have solos, and there's people who are 22 who have solos, and so I really appreciate that actually about the institution that I'm with, is that I don't sense a large element of ageism there, which I think can exist for sure in some places.
How was that in your world?
Well, I think it's slightly different for classical.
Yeah, for sure. It really is. Yeah.
Unfortunately, you do feel the age as you get older. You are stopped getting your roles, I suppose, unfortunately. So sometimes I feel people feel they're at the point where they have to retire, or they're putting the position where, okay, I have to retire now. So it's not always a natural choice, which is sad, because I feel as you grow as an artist, you grow. It's like a fine wine. It comes with age. So it's unfortunate. The classical career is so short in that sense, because you're just finding yourself as you get to your 40s. It takes time. And then you have to leave it. So
there is this really beautiful, delicate window from like 33 to 40 or 33 to 39 or somewhere in there, where you've kind of done it long enough to really find yourself in it and to accept yourself. And then you kind of just can exist in that. And that's a really beautiful space to be in. And it is different between classical and contemporary. I mean, we get to make all of the steps that we do. So if you don't want to do a double tour, don't do a double tour. So it is really the qualitative and the quantitative aspects of the differences.
Absolutely.
It's really
about what we are, where we are sitting now, and what do you think about the next step or the future when it comes to this orientation phase? What can you give or do you have any ideas how to make that easier for your coming colleagues, the people who are younger than you, in the next generation? What would you like them to have access to? Is there something more needed?
I think, like Jessie says, more talks with each other, groups to talk and share thoughts, definitely. And I think I would just say, just try things. Even if you don't know, don't be scared to just try those sparks of, that takes an interest. Do as many tries before you even get to that stage. So you've felt other things. Because like you say, we don't always know, but we need to give ourselves new information, new tries to see what we like. And I think it's important because we've done something so long that's been done with our heart, something that we love with a passion to do, that it's, to find that was always a big fear. Can I find something that's going to be like I put my life for, your passion? you know, that's the biggest fear, I think, when you're coming from our kind of jobs. It's not really a job, is it? It's so yeah.
You can imagine, especially if you're in that perfect bubble and then you know it's going to burst sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get too hung up on that. I think it's good to access gratitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
just I mean, think about the fact that you even get to have a professional career where I mean that's 1% of the people who begin dancing.
Fortunate.
You know, it's super special to even be able to have that. I would also say that I mean, a couple of things that are useful is to just be kind to yourself. You know, really don't get too caught in negative self-talk. It will happen, but just to actually really try to be kind to yourself physically and mentally to keep that going. And then also to just be very curious. You know, don't write anything off. If something way over there seems interesting, just look into it a bit. And not just on the computer, you know. I mean, it's a fine place to start to figure out where that thing is, but then go put your feet in that place and see what that feels like, if you can, and to whatever degree. I mean, I think it is harder. It's hard for me to really find the space or the time or the energy to do that in a real way. I mean, dance is so full all the time. I mean, if you can teach a bit on the day off or see how that feels, then that is, I think, is manageable. But sometimes if it's something really different, then it can be hard to find. But that doesn't mean you should turn off that option. Just keep it open and keep it curious, and try to get as much evidence for yourself, because I really do think that once you start to experience something, you will build more confidence in your ability to apprehend content.
So if I should bet some money on where you are in 5 years, career-wise?
That would be a hard bet. I mean, at this point, there are really very separate kind of vectors of direction that I think. I mean, one thought is to stay close to the dance world, or stay close to the physical world, because I love it. I think that growing up, I would dance and I would quit and I would focus on something else, and I think I started and stopped dancing 10 times throughout my teenage years and younger, because other things were always interesting. So for me, I think it was always a thought that I didn't want, not because there's anything wrong with it, but I think I wanted to also experience life fully separate from the dance world in some way, whether that was academic or non-cultural or something out there. I feel very artsy. I love the arts. I mean, I write a lot and I play music, and but yeah, it's always been interesting to me to have something a bit, to see if it's possible and to see what that life would feel like. So I mean, there's some thoughts. I've always been interested in medicine. I have a lot of doctors in the family, so it's always a lot of influence from that and interest in that. So to do something that is related physically, whether it's something in osteopathy or body work or something connected to that, to naturopath or physio. And then other things are to really go to university and study something totally different, something. Now I'm taking some classes in sustainable development and interested in that, because I mean, you want to help, something. So, whether it's helping a student, or whether it's helping someone with a physical problem, or whether it's, trying to do whatever little part you can in any way about the looming situations in the world. I think I'm going to shift a bit. I feel like it's a bit easy to leave dance now or in the next couple of years, because I feel that, okay, this has been wonderful, but I really want to put my energy somewhere else.
It's true. I think advice is really to always keep a little one foot outside your bubble. Because we have similar, you say you've gone in and out, and I was the same. I left ballet for 4 years, after graduating from a vocational school and was in the real world, so to speak. So, but had an idea how it is to be a freelancer, how it is to do musical theatre, how it is to be on another spectrum, and then went back to the ballet, same. And I think having that's always kept me with the little one foot out the bubble. So when you get to this point of trying new things, it's not such a shock. It's very similar ways of doing a career, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that everyone has to do it or even has the time or the interest to do it. But I mean, I remember when I was about 32, I was like, I just wanted to keep dancing, but I was like, I'll see if I can do something else. So I had some friends that were going to real estate school, and so I was like, I was living in Chicago. I was like, the main impetus was just that I was walking around, and I was like, I'd love to see what those apartments look like. And so I got my real estate license and did that for 3 years simultaneously to dancing. So it's just interesting to I was like, let's see what that feels like. I never had aspirations, nor do I now, to be a real estate agent. But it was just confirming or reaffirming to just I can do something else. And
it's connections, isn't it? The people you meet and the influences and talking to people. I always say it's also during this time, keep talking to people, not just within your circle. If you can, if you can find those, like you say, go and visit somewhere and talk to them.
Stay curious.
Stay curious, like a child.
Get information. It doesn't have to amount to anything, but the more things that you bring in and filter through, not just with the idea of this will all somehow pay off in the end, but it's really you're always processing, even if it's way back there.
Okay. A lot of thoughts, and very interesting to hear your reflections, both where you are and where you are, and hopefully that can help people in your situation as well to listen to this. Is there anything else you'd like to say that adds on this conversation? Something we haven't really reflected upon?
I could say maybe I'm just repeating myself, which happens. But just acknowledge that it's coming. Don't freak out about it, but time moves at the pace that it does, and how we perceive it alters all the time. But I think just acknowledge it. Acknowledge that it will happen at some point, and even if your director's not talking about it, or your friends aren't talking about it, or your family isn't, or just acknowledge that it's coming, and then kind of meet that with some warmth and some interest. And you can say the earlier the better, but that can be anxiety producing. But it's more just acknowledge it, meet it. Try if you can to find a way to not run from it, because I think that it is roughly inevitable. So I think to meet it with openness and with interest and kindness. You have to be nice to yourself, because it's easy to go the other way and to really lament that this has to happen. I think it's helpful to think about that. People leave law careers at 40. People leave business. People are shifting all the time. So just because in sports and in dance we have this external factor that is forcing the change, realize that many people have to do this. I had one friend who said she took a totally different tact on it. She's like, it's brilliant that you had this big, wonderful career, and now you get to go do something else. It's
this
really
is a positive.
You have time for two
exactly.
or more.
Actually. So I think there's no right or wrong way. No. There's no right or wrong way.
No,
just make sure you have a good support system like SOK and friends and family, and you will find the way. You have to trust it. It will happen. It's inevitable. But this is why SOK has been great, because it gives you that support. So
change is constant.
Change is good.
And constant.
And constant, absolutely.
So thank you so much for having this conversation, and good luck.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessie.